Hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 8th chapter of You Either Die a Villain or See Yourself Become a Hero, written by FantasyFreak_2 on AO3. Villain AUs are my beloved, so we must heed the trigger warnings before we proceed. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for abuse, suicide, murder, bullying, and discrimination. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game, with this tale of Class 1A being a class specifically for rehabilitating villains in the making. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. After sneaking out, Class 1A gets saved from their homeroom teacher's wrath by a newcomer. Also, Shinso and Midoriya get extra classes, everyone gets therapy, and the class rep is elected. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 8. A Furry Saviour. Izuku and Hatsume talked about support items for hours, and Izuku even managed to use the opportunity to use some of them in an improvised training fight against some of his classmates. Kachan and Kirishima seemed to have the time of their lives fighting each other until one of them fell over in fatigue. His other classmates also fought or looked around at some of the support items. After several hours, Ida had to put an end to the fighting and discussions so they could get back to their dorm on time. They took some smaller items with them that Hatsume said no one would miss and hurried to the dorm, but they were stopped by a surprise waiting for them. Several meters away from the dorm, but still visual range of it was... "Is that a cat?" Hagakure squeaked. "Aw, look at how cute it is," Uraraka said. The cat looked unsure as 21 students gathered around it. "How did it get past the security?" Zaro asked. "Dude, it's a cat," Denki answered. "They are like the ninjas of nature." Uraraka came closer and tried to pet it, but it receded and hissed at her. Shinso rolled his eyes. "That's not how you get close to a cat. Here, look." He slowly went down to his knees, then sat close to the cat, but not close enough to scare it off. Then he slowly held his hand up to it. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the cat slowly creeped closer. It sniffed at his hand, then purred and rubbed its head over it. Shinso smiled and started petting the cat. It rolled over so he could get to its stomach, and Izuku saw it was a girl. He also noticed dried blood on its front paw. "It's hurt!" Mina exclaimed. Shinso carefully picked up the cat and looked at its front paw. The poor thing hissed as he touched it, and he immediately pulled his hand back and petted her soothingly. "We have to get her inside," Ida said and went to turn around, but froze mid-movement. Izuku followed his gaze and swallowed hard. Aizawa Shota stood between them and the dorms, with his hair in a bun and his arms crossed in front of him, looking very, very pissed. "Sensei!" Ida exclaimed. Aizawa looked down at him. "Would you mind explaining to me why none of you are in your dorm?" Ida looked too scared to say anything, so Izuku hurried to say, "There's a cat!" Aizawa raised an eyebrow. "A cat?" "It's hurt, Sensei!" Mina hurried to explain. Shinso stood up with the cat still in his arms and showed it to his teacher. "I think her front paw got cut badly." Aizawa first looked at Shinso angrily, but as his gaze wandered to the cat, that changed. Izuku would have never believed that their strict homeroom teacher even could look so soft. Carefully, he took the cat from Shinso, which didn't seem to bother her at all, and started cooing. "Hey there, beautiful," he murmured while the entire class was staring at him dumbfounded. "Did you get hurt, you poor thing? Let me have a look." He examined her paw carefully and started petting her as she got agitated. Then he turned to the class. His gaze got harder again, but there still seemed to be some softness lingering. "You lot get back in the dorms and get ready for classes. And don't think I will overlook it again if I see any of you outside of the dorms without permission. I'll get the cat to Recovery Girl to make sure she gets treatment." He turned around but shouted over his shoulder, "And I'll make sure the alarm system of your dorm gets updated." Then he was gone. They were still talking about Aizawa's strange behavior while they gathered to their first class. "Who knew Aizawa was such a wussy for a cat?" Mineta laughed. "We should have bribed him with one much earlier. Would have saved us some trouble." "Speaking of a cat," Denki leaned over to Shinso, "the way you behaved with that cat was nearly as in love as Sensei." Shinso's cheeks reddened slightly, and he rubbed his neck. "I like cats." Uraraka giggled. "Clearly." Todoroki came closer and looked Shinso up and down. Considering the accumulating amount of evidence, he leaned closer and asked seriously, "Are you Sensei's secret love child?" Shinso jumped back and stared at him. "Wait, what? No! What accumulating amount of evidence are you even talking about?" Todoroki shrugged. "You both like cats. You have non-physical quirks which can be seen as villainous. Both your hair defies gravity at least sometimes, and you both want to use a scarf as a capture weapon." "That isn't evidence!" Shinso looked as red as a tomato by now. "Your costume has a capture weapon integrated?" Aizawa asked, who suddenly appeared behind Shinso. Shinso jumped and cursed under his breath, then looked at his teacher sheepishly. Yes, I was inspired by you, Sensei." Aizawa raised an eyebrow. "By me?" Shinso nervously rubbed his hands together. "You are the hero who most often appears in the neighborhood I live in." Izuku swore he saw something in Sensei's eyes. "Pity?" "Not the nicest neighborhood, then?" Shinso looked at his feet. "No." Izuku saw his chance and took it. "Sensei, you should show Shinso how to use his capture weapon properly after classes." Shinso whipped his head around and stared at Izuku and mouthed to him, "What the hell are you doing?" Izuku smiled at him reassuringly, even with Aizawa's heavy gaze upon him. Aizawa looked at Izuku for a few seconds then. "Thank you for volunteering as a target in practice, problem child." Shinso's mouth fell open. "Does that mean—" Aizawa turned to the class and proclaimed, "There will be extra training each day for the children who do worst in class." But, Shinso stuttered, "Me and Midoriya didn't even do the worst in anything. You said the quirk apprehension test didn't give useful results." Aizawa rolled his eyes. That the kid with the non-physical quirk and the quirkless kid are the worst in combat, at least without proper training, is pretty certain without a test to prove it. Izuku felt the anger rise he always felt when people told him he was worth less because he was quirkless, but he squashed it. Aizawa didn't discriminate against him, it was just a simple truth that he started with a disadvantage. That didn't mean that he couldn't still beat his classmates with a little help that Aizawa was offering. So Izuku bowed to him and said, "Thank you, Sensei." Aizawa shrugged. "By the way, the worst student won't only be decided by their combat ability. Schoolwork is important too." He looked at Denki, who swallowed hard. Then they were interrupted by the head of a cat which appeared above the rim of Aizawa's scarf. The cat they found this morning was sitting in his scarf. Several of the girls and a few boys ahed. "Is she feeling better?" Yaoyorozu asked. Aizawa petted the cat's head a few times while answering. "Yes, Recovery Girl unfortunately can't heal animals, but she helped her the old-fashioned way with bandages. There was a little bit of discussion of what to do with her in the teacher's lounge, but we came to an agreement. You will take care of her." "What?" "We think it is a good way to teach you some responsibility, since you only found her by sneaking out of the dorm. That probably is needed." Aizawa looked at them with glowing red eyes, and the entire class seemed to swallow at once. "And the cat is a good combination to the therapy sessions that will start today." Aoyama raised his hand. "Which therapy sessions, monsieur?" "You are all here because you committed crimes to which we think you were coerced by external forces you didn't have control about. That is the only reason you even got a second chance. So, did you think we would just ignore the fact that we think you are all psychologically damaged?" Izuku looked around the room and felt relieved that he could see in the faces of his classmates that they also had thought that yes, that would be the case. Aizawa sighed. "I made a time plan for your class. Everyone goes to therapy an hour a week. Should it prove that some of you need more time, the timetable will be adjusted." "I don't need a fucking shrink!" Kachan shouted. Aizawa whipped around to him with his eyes red and his hair floating around him and hissed, "This is not up for discussion." Izuku observed that Aizawa didn't use his capture weapon on Kachan this time. Kachan grumbled, but didn't say more. Aizawa seemed content with that reaction and nodded. "Well, on to the subject of today's lesson. You will choose your class representative." He went over to a yellow sleeping bag in the corner and laid down in it. "Have fun." He closed his eyes, and the cat slipped out of his scarf and cuddled to his chest. It looked very cute. While most of his classmates were still fawning over the cute picture in front of them, Ida stood up. "I think we should make a democratic vote." Todoroki spoke up. "I think considering which students did their best until now to help everyone in the class, the obvious candidates for the position are Midoriya, Yaoyorozu, and Ida. We just have to decide between them." All three of them immediately blushed and looked at their hands. Yaoyorozu stuttered. Are you sure? I mean, I do my best, but I only made some furniture and stuff because of my quirk." "Nonsense, Ribbit," Suyu said. "After I couldn't sleep last night, you stayed up with me and made me tea. You didn't have to do that, and it had nothing to do with your quirk." "Yeah," Kirishima said, "and Ida and Izuku are the only reason we came together at the apprehension test and helped each other." Izuku felt flattered. Finally, someone who appreciated him, but... "I think Ida and Yaoyorozu should be the class reps." "But..." Shinso spoke up. Izuku shook his head. "No, I know I helped some of you, and I tried to keep the class together, but to be honest..." His hands balled up into fists. "I only did it because I needed you. I was selfish because I knew I wouldn't manage to survive here alone. Ida and Yaoyorozu helped you because it was the right thing to do." Izuku looked up at Ida and saw there were tears in his eyes. But then his classmates seemed to get a grip on himself and he bowed down to the class. "I thank you all for putting your trust in me, and I will do my best not to disappoint you all." Yaoyorozu was still red, but stood up and bowed as well. "Me too. So if any of you need anything, I'm here. My tea cabinet is open to you." Everyone started cheering. Aizawa raised his head with a sour expression on his face. "Already finished? Damn it, I wanted to sleep. No, Sensei! Mina jumped and shouted. We still have a very important question we have to answer before the end of class! She dramatically breathed in and then pointed in his direction. How will we call the cat? Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. I'm going to admit that this last week has been the hardest one I've had in a while, and once again, my work has been something that's helped me get through it. So all I can say is thank you for being here and making my life a little bit brighter. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction, fantasyfreak_2 on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah!